Hello everybody and welcome to another Third Aged Reforged, and this is the Spawn of Sauron. Today for you I have a battle made by Froggy, and this is one of the people may have seen a test footage on UMAG Commander, but this is apparently probably ready for release from what I was told last night, so this is meant to be extremely close. I don't know who wins. I don't know what happens either way. I did play on one of the original versions of this, which is the one that's on UMAD's channel. So if you want to see one of the test footages, then that's fine. Please go ahead and have a look. But this is promising to be a pretty close fight. So let's just have a look and see how they match up. We're going to just start with a quick zoom over the armies before we get into the action. So we have Umbar here. So we have, I want to call it Antifix. So he's got some Royal Archers, he's got some Corsair Blackguards with their Javies, we've got some more Royal Guard Spearmen. As we zoom around, I think I might have to go back for some that I've missed. We've got some... God, you gotta love Umbar, haven't you? The Abernazim Narudugazaga. I'm gonna really butcher these, so if you like hearing these butchered, then... And he's got another unit of them, I can say that a bit easier. If you want to hear these butchered, then this is the time for it. He's got some Abernazim Narudurabirid. He's got some elite archers. That's what he's got. There they are. They look fantastic. Oh, I do love the look of Umbar. I like how they've taken some of the black sort of armor variant, seemingly of Gondor, and you can see sometimes they have the small sort of wings, almost like the Lamroth. And it's just kind of a nice blend of sort of, I guess, piratey with the sash to villainous, but also with the human nature to them as well. He's got another unit of those archer troop. He's got quite an elite force, actually, from the looks of it. He's got some Castamir's Chosen. So there's Castamir's. Again, sorry if you can hear the squirrel wheel. My apologies for that. But yeah, you can see again the sort of almost like... the old Kingdoms of Men with the sort of helm design, which I think is really cool. He's going to have them backed up. He's got some Corsair Pikes. He's got some Belagear Halberds. Belagear is kind of their sort of early mid, I guess, tier unit is the Belagear. I should probably have actually kept hold of a little bit longer for you guys to see what they look like. There they are. Some fantastic mustaches. Look at those guys. And just so you can see what the Corsairs look like, they are very piratey. There they are. They are... They're a little bit more their fodder forces. I think that's it really defending this sort of one chokeway. I'll show you the map momentarily for those who haven't seen it, but we're just going to make sure we've got the rest of the army. He's got some more pikemen here. This is kind of back where we were before with the Royal Guard and the Blackguards, if you remember. He's got some savages. The savages are quite good. They're big, sort of. They're a bit susceptible to archers, but they there they are with the big two-handers. They do have these additional sort of claw weapons, but I don't believe they actually have an animation to use them. It's all about the large axes there. Let's go see what their captain looks like. Look at that captain! Look how badass he looks! Look at that! He's against all these burly half-naked men, but even so. This is where we start merging into his ally, I believe. Yep, this is Apollo. Not Pixelated Apollo, this is Mex Apollo. He's also a moderator and admin for the official channel. If you would like to join the official channel, if you haven't already, please find the link below. He's got some more of those Heavy Guard. Another unit of the Heavy Guard. These guys are two-handers, by the way. I'm not sure if I mentioned before. So they're two-handed sword unit there. So you can see them there with a wicked blade. He does have the Royal Guard Spearmen as well, and he's got his own Corsair Blackguards. I don't know if people have noticed the design of the Blackguards has changed slightly. Either that or this is an armor variant. It's not like how they used to look. So there you go. I don't know if many people have had a chance to see some of them. I know that UMAD is slowly doing his faction reviews. I think he's waiting a little bit for the hot patch, which is still coming. It is still coming. We just keep finding more things we want to improve and change. So rather than doing multiple releases, we're just kind of following them up. This isn't all about just balancing stuff. This is about additions of new equipment and weaponry and things like that. So, oh god. Okay, so he's got basically the sword and board variant of the elite troops. I'm not even gonna bother. Oh, go on. I'll try them. The Arab. The Abernazim Naru... Oh, for God. I'm not... If If you want to try and put the pronunciation in the comments below for next time, please feel free to do so. But I'm dyslexic, so it's not always going to struggle. That's something that me and the Pixelated Apollo have in common, at least, which makes this all the more entertaining, especially when it comes to some of the Elven units as well. I don't know where they get these names from, but there we go. So here we go. This is the Belegaer Archers. I am quite a good fan of the Archers. Mainly because they do double up as an okay infantry once they've used their ammunition. They're not anything on the Elven kind of level, but you can see that they do have a shield value, they do have some armor, and it does help them a little bit in the skirmishing as well if you've got a skirmish bout against your opponents. But they double up as an okay infantry. I wouldn't say you really want to use them often, but they double up okay. He's got a few units of that. He's got some halberds here to the side, he's got some more halberds. So we can probably put this up to second speed. I don't want it to be the point where... we'll put it up to full speed. We'll slow it down again when the other armies appear. And he's got some more halberds. He's got some Corsair pikemen. He's got some of the crossbows, which we had a little bit of trouble with them last time. They got a lot of kills, but the defenders said that they were a little bit tricksy. But the thing is that Corsair... well, I mean... crossbows in general, similar to, say, javelins, can be... a little bit finicky to get their angle right, and that's partly one of the reasons that they are. So here's the Harbingers. Again, they've changed slightly in their design. You probably remember them before having sort of skulls in their helmet back when they were part of the Haradrim, but now they've been separated out. They're much more human-looking with their two-handed swords, and he's got a couple of units of those. They do seem to have some sneaky forces over here. I suspect this is probably going to be cavalry. So let's just have a glance over here. And, oh, there's a unit that popped out of existence. A couple of units popped out of existence, I think, mainly because he's moving them around. This is Ark. So Ark has the 3rd Army. Now, the 3rd Army is a little bit smaller. When we were talking about balancing, at one point we were considering about removing the the sort of support army entirely. But let's have a look here. So he's got the Warlords of Umber. I love how their shields came out. You can really see sort of the Umber design there. So this is all pretty sweet. And I don't know if you can see the detailing in the video. I hope so. You can see that there's actually detailing on the armor and the horses. I think it's called barding, I guess is the correct term. I can't remember if that's just for leather or if it also counts for armor, though. I'm sure that people can comment below. Corsair Archers. Not the most amazing archers in the world, but actually they do the job quite well. The fact that they can hide anywhere, and they're an archer unit. They struggle, I guess, in sustained sort of skirmish fire with another archer force, but they can still do their job pretty handily if they don't have to worry about being... I guess, zoned out too much. He has some footmen here as well. I do like the way they have almost like a trident in some respects, their spear. He's got some Corsair infantry. I mean, they're okay, but they're a little bit lower tier. I think they'll struggle, but they could be good for some reverse and some charges. Here's the meat of his force, I guess, or his more elite side. The Fencers. Fantastic assassin unit there. Really good. Definitely... well worth taking along if you can keep them protected. As you can see, they don't have a shield value, and their armor is not the heaviest in the world, but really good unit. A lot of course infantry. I'm interested about his positioning here. So he stacked them up quite heavy here, and I thought it would be so he could get to somebody quicker, but I'd probably have moved them across slightly. He maybe struggled with the map. Maybe he couldn't place them here. I suspect what he wants to do is charge along there to try and get to the town to reinforce his ally. I imagine he's not going to hold here. So we're going to quickly look at the map while things are zoning in. So basically what it is, it's quite... and I think Apollo said it... Apollo. You, my commander, said it's similar to myself. It's quite serpentine. There's a lot of these little... I mean, not really islands, but little ways and little pathways through this sort of marshland area. So we're just going to slowly zoom over, and you can see here that there's a few ways that the attackers can go, but ultimately most of the battle will happen in this central town. They aren't really going to probably bother falling back to there. It doesn't give the defenders high ground, and it's probably not a defensible location. But what happens is there's all these little mini choke points, basically. The attackers can swing up through these sort of little bit of larger plains, which basically makes the defenders have to hold these locations. But the defenders do get the high ground, they can see where they're going to come from, and they do get some good visuals. It does mean that the attackers can pick their directions as best they can. It means that they have a few openings in there. It does take a bit of a jog to get to them, and sometimes, unfortunately, if you do want to support your ally as the attacker, it's quite hard, because if you've gone one route, let's say you've gone down through here, and they've gone up through there, getting to them can be difficult, just because of the way the terrain and the map works. You can see here that this is sort of the section, and they can do what I'll call a bum rush, really, which is they could go up through these two side routes here to just attack the main town, whilst the rest of the main forces are sort of positioned in the centre. Now, when I did this before, I felt that the town here was probably the best bet that we had in encircling and crushing forces. Although admittedly the town itself was a little finicky to walk through and actually quite difficult. I didn't like the assault on this location just because it was a bit of a steep slope. It was very easy for them, in my opinion, to withdraw to reinforce it, and I didn't like going in on my own. In hindsight, maybe I could have done, but actually the fight in the main town was quite significant. So actually making it so that they had to leave reserve forces there was quite important, as it did help support us. Okay, so we're just going to have a look over to the other forces. It doesn't look like much has changed for the defenders in terms of their units. So he's got some archers here, so there's the mid-high tier. So he's got Destroyer, by the way. I haven't played with him myself, but we'll see how he does. So he's got some archers. He's got some infantry. Good number of sort of his mid-high tier infantry. Looks like he's got some halberds mixed in there as well as his forces of Mordor. I don't want to spend too long on the forces, to be honest, because I know some people don't enjoy it. He's got some bodyguard. I always find the bodyguard look a little bit sort of moss-coloured compared to some of the other units. So if you think this guy's a upper mid-tier, and then this is the bodyguard, it always looks like it's the wrong way around in terms of their uniform. He's got some Temple Guard, fantastic unit, good in both range and melee. Are low on ammunition, though. He's got some Minas Morgul Chosen. He's got some Black Legion there. There they are. I always like how their shields look. And he's got some heavy maulers, which are good if you can keep them protected. He's got some Ulick High, which you'll need for some pushing. He's got a bunch of Orc fodder, which, just so people know, they do have spears. So if you do see some cavalry which you think that you might be able to envelop or you're concerned about, you could throw some fodder at them. Like, the fodder aren't going to do very good in melee anyway, but if you get the opportunity to encircle some cav, they are a spear unit, so they don't do badly. Got some Orc archers there, a couple units of them there. So he has a couple. He's not low on archers, I should say. Is probably what I would say there. We're going to just quickly move over while the forces start moving out. So we've got some Misty Mountains. This is by Tundra Fox. He's got some heavy goblin spears, some Moors. So he's got some light infantry as well, which are probably going to be his fodder forces for the purposes of this. He's got some halberds. A few units of halberds, actually. He's got quite a few goblin archers. I wonder if he's got any trackers around. He might not have trackers. I think that may be actually part of Gundabad's forces. But he's got some goblin infantry. He's got some White Uruk fearmongers. I've seen and showed you these guys a couple times as they march through. He also has some berserkers back there. He's got some more heavy goblin. A lot of heavy goblin infantry, to be honest. But you'd expect that from a Misty Mountains force. He has some Goblin King bodyguard. And that's about it, really. Just a lot of heavies. A lot of heavies. And you've got some Blackback Mountain Berserkers, which is probably my favourite unit in the Misty Mountain roster. And everyone should at least bring one of those, because they're absolutely fantastic and can decimate armies. And then we're going to go and quickly look over the final army here. We've got Mordor, which is played by the map creator of Froggy. And he has some Orc Maulers. He's got a few units of them. They are there. A lot of Orc Maulers, actually. He's got some halberds. Got some more halberds. Very similar force to the other army, I think. He's got some Sauron's Rill, which makes him slightly different. It looks like his bodyguard unit might be slightly different as well. It could just be because I'm looking at them through the Sauron's Rill. Yeah, he's just got the normal bodyguard unit. He's got some spearmen, he's got some archers. Like I said, very similar force. It looks like he's got mountain trolls rather than Ulick High. And he probably... Oh, he's got some javelins. So he's got some javelins and he's got the Sauron's Will, which probably makes him slightly different to the other unit. But he's still got similar in the setup of orc fodder. Right, let's have a quick look and see how it's going. So, in regards to how it is, we've got Ark now. He is going to move his forces over like he thought he would. He's going to send them out. It'd be interesting to see what he does with his cav. He's going to leave his cav out there to harass, although it may get trapped and locked, although with all the different pathways, it should be able to sort of wiggle its way through without having too much problems. I expect he'll come up here and join his allies in the main defense. So on this side, we've got Antifix, who's going to support and face off against Froggy. He's got quite a few lines here. Now, he does risk archer fire against those pikemen. The pikemen will not like having the archers. And in his front line, he does have a sword and board, so they'll do slightly fair, slightly better. But I think he's got a little bit of concerns there. If I was the attackers, I'd be really just kind of pummeling that down. He also has some Corsair archers, which are quite close to the front line, keeping them in stealth. Be interested to see if he pops them up or if he's going to keep them hidden. He's got some savages in reserve, and he's got some more archers there, making those to the hillside. And he's got his crossbows to try and get some crossfire. Be interested to see if they do get the angle there. Might be a difficult one for them to get the arc, but definitely worth trying. He does leave himself open here, I think possibly to being flanked. If he does change his lines, I think that maybe his better bet would have been moving up slightly forward. I'm a bit concerned about what he's got here on the edges. He doesn't have anything to support that, really. And no reserves on this side either. This is Apollo, actually. My apologies. He doesn't really have much reserve infantry here. So if they do come through, there's not much keeping them away. And I'm a bit worried about that. I think that could be costly for him. He does have some more missile units. So he's trying to defend this side in case they come up from the flank. He's got his crossbows there. Let's have a look. They will have a better chance of getting that shot. They've got a much better angle. Definitely going to be a kill zone if they go through there. And they are going to put a couple of units on that far side defending it. It'd be interesting to see where their ally goes and joins them from. Maybe the ally will join them in the town proper, or maybe they'll go and try and support Apollo on the side there. Apollo does have a couple of units left within the town. Probably just holding out just to see if he can make the most. What I would say is that the town was actually quite difficult to attack as an attacker. These routes in were a little bit finicky from the map. The units struggled to run through them, and some units decided that... I had some archers that were meant to be shooting the units that held in the position. I had them kind of out here, but every time I told them to shoot where those blackguards are now, they decided that they wanted to run forward into melee. Goodness knows why, but I was constantly trying to get them back out again. So he's going to move some archers onto that side. No, he's just going to reinforce them back there. I think that's where he had his crossbows before. No, they're still there. Okay, so he's just repositioning some units. I think we're going to get a bit of a skirmish phase to begin with. He has got some tower shields there supporting his Corsair, so they'll fare a little bit better against this in terms of the being shot down. I think that a lot of the ammunition will be soaked by the shield units there. And the attackers aren't really going for this side, but I'm not surprised too much that they aren't looking to go there. It does force Apollo to continue to keep units there whilst he waits. So Destroyer's going to start a little bit slow, but he's got all the time in the world, so he may as well. There's more and more units to reposition. These guys still hiding. I guess they could get a shot off the archers, but at this point, wait for some higher value units, but we'll see what happens. Interestingly enough, that the army on this side, which is Entefix, is actually furthest from his rest of his forces, which are over here. So, actually, I thought he would take the near side, which is nearer to where all his units from the final bout are, but he hasn't. I'm just going to quickly glance back here, see who's got some final remaining forces. This is just Apollo, so I guess if he gets wiped out in the town, he still has something to fight with at the end. Right, we're going to go up to full speed then and let this play out. It looks like we're going to have an early skirmish. Looks like with the cavalry, in fact. So we've got some fodder spearmen. Here we go. There you go. The fodder spearmen chasing away the Warlords of Umber. Who would have thought it? And there you go. So Froggy using his spear units and only losing maybe 2. And it looks like they're going to come back for another charge. Let's see how this goes. So there you go. So Ark is charging now into the fodder units. I don't think Froggy really cares about losing any of those. Keeps them busy. And actually, it looks like he was trying to set up a trap. If you see there, he's got his mountain trolls coming up the other side with a significant portion. Maybe about a third, maybe less than that. Maybe about a quarter of his force coming up this side. I think what they want to do is try and stop these guys before they link up with their main allies. I don't think it's going to happen. I think that the Warlords are basically trying to screen the forces there, and I think they have been able to do enough. As he comes back in, it looks like he's probably thinking about a charge maybe on the trolls. They are only mountain trolls, but I think the archers have scared him off. But as long as he was facing forward, he may have been okay. He's got to be careful about facing backwards. Look at that Mars. It's going to be difficult about facing backwards. He doesn't get a shield bonus that way. And it looks like he had a possibility of being in range. But it looks like he's just going to continue to screen his forces as they jog their way up. They're going to get tired, but I think it's worth it rather than being cut off. He didn't want to be out by himself. He needs to combine his units, and that's the right thing to do. I think Froggy tried to do what he could, but to be honest, he didn't look like he lost anything. He made them rush themselves, and he lost maybe, what? No more than maybe about 8-10 fodder. I wouldn't be too fussed by that, to be honest. I don't think he should really be too tempted to fight up here, though. I think that slope's a bit rough to go up, and I think the angle that the defenders would have from an archer point of view would be too good on him. But it does continue to split defenders. But I think what the defenders will actually do is probably pull back and make them come up this long strip that they've got a good sight on. And actually, you could put the crossbows along here, and that would probably do a lot. But he's got his elite archers there anyway waiting. So be interested to see whether Froggy takes that and decides to charge in. You can see there the fences waiting in reserve. This is going to be a difficult one to push through, which makes me think that you want to skirmish it. And the Goblin Infantry are basically just going to have a staring contest. See if they'll fire at them, see if they've got fire at will on. I don't think they're going to take the bait. And these guys will probably pop into ambush relatively soon. Yeah, you can see a lot of Froggy's forces just kind of spreading around. I guess what they want to do is make the defenders spread around by sitting units all over the place. Any puffs of smoke come? Puffs of smoke. I said that a lot last time in the previous video. Puffs of blood is what I meant to say. So you can see the Corsair archers have popped up into existence there. They've been screened here by some halberds, and they're taking some pot shots at the Goblin archers. So they're going to have a bit of a skirmish bout. Over in the other places, not much has really changed. So you can see the Destroyer also doing a bit of a standoff as they trade insults. You can see that they have had a couple losses, seemingly probably from archer fire, but they are just having a bit of a shouting match at one another. You can see there that the pikes really did struggle from arrows, and that was even with the shields in front of them, so a lot has come down. And the halberds are going to move forward. It doesn't look like the halberds have really taken... Oh, no, I tell a lie, the halberds have been getting shot on their way up, which is the right thing to do. But they have made it so that they didn't get the angle off. Ah, this is what I was worried about, see? See here? So this is Destroyer making and abusing this fact that they weren't lining up. This is exactly what I would do. Now, it could be that what Apollo wanted to do is he wanted to get a good shot into the side, and the more units that flood into there, the better. It's certainly risky, because what has he got in reserve? More archers. So he's definitely going to be racking up a lot of kills. He has now made his crossbows be exposed, and they've been seen. You can see them start dropping like flies from the arrow fire, so they will have to pull out of there, because they literally have no armor, these guys. So they're going to get shot to pieces. Yeah, there you go. Absolutely ruined. So that's going to clear them off of that side hill. But this gap here, this flank still exists, which Apollo's made himself, and he's being abused now by the infantry. The heavy infantry will hold quite well as they go around the sides of this pike formation, which isn't going to hold. The heavy infantry will hold okay, but this pike formation is going to struggle as they start getting hit in the flank, and the halberds will have no problem really just kind of holding the front line where they've been positioned in. Just, I guess, not pushing too hard and waiting, as you can see them starting to fall and reposition. And then what happens is that the pike will start doing the pike shuffle, which is what I like to call it, which is where they keep trying to center themselves. And as they keep centering themselves, they keep making things more difficult for themselves, and the flank becomes more and more exposed. You can see them all shuffling along, and this is kind of how you start the beginning of the end, really. You make this tide, and as they shuffle, they're not fighting either. They're not holding their position, they're not trying to resupport, they're not moving forward. So they keep shuffling around, which is a real waste in terms of a unit. You can see here he's also been flanked on this side as well, because he wasn't able to stretch himself. It was just too long. I think, like I said, it would have moved him slightly further forward. He's brought in some heavy infantry, however, to support this side. They will do quite a good job here. But in the meantime, he's going to send his Uluk High in, and he's going to start messing up these guys. With the infantry support, should do quite well. There's not much in the way of javelins here, so he's going to have to commit another unit of his heavy infantry to this battle. You can see here that Apollo did move forward slightly further down to make it a little bit easier for himself here with his missile units. I guess just to give them a different angle, and I guess they did have a small skirmish with a couple of units out here that basically were holding up position. Looks like only cheap fodder, though. Probably just stood there to pull those units, really, actually, because they got them out of their formation. They can't be involved in shooting into this melee here. So, Destroyer's losing a lot of forces, but he is making the good pushes. The thing is that the attackers can afford to lose a little bit, and actually losing a little bit early on can really work out, because if this flank fails, then it ultimately means all the other flanks are successful, because you have to pull back with your ally. You can't leave one side open and still try and hold on the other, because you're just going to get wrapped up and isolated. So this is a good move by Destroyer. I think he's going to struggle here, as in Apollo is, but he is clearing up this side here. I think actually Destroyer needs to work on this momentum and force more units in. He's starting to get this line very thin. He's starting to break them. He's forcing more into this fight here where he's got the elites, which is okay to do. I can see why he would send the maulers in to fight that, but I think he's got to make more of the momentum here, come in behind and rear charge into that pike formation. We're going to quickly skip over to the other side where it looks like there's a fair bit of action as well. This is a hard push. I wouldn't want to be Tundra and Froggy. I can see why they've had to team up here, because this is a difficult bout. Now, we do have some of the heavy infantry out of formation, but they're not going to struggle against these fodder. If anything, the fodder just keeping them busy. As they start putting more and more units forward. Now, there's two reasons they might be doing this. I personally would probably take it a little bit slower here, knowing that Destroyer's doing so well on his side, just to try and conserve my units. But it could be that he wants to try and keep these units tapped in. If he doesn't have a show of force, then what will happen is that actually the defenders will just withdraw these units safely, because the line that's currently present will have no problem in holding it. And if you're not going to have any problem holding it, it means that you can basically leave a final rear guard and then withdraw all the units you want. Now, what it could be is that these guys don't want these guys to escape. They want Destroyer to break through, and the best way of stopping these guys from being able to escape is by penning them into melee where they can't afford to leave, or their line will break. Now, the good news for the attackers is that there's a little bit of a blob here in terms of low armoured units. This is what I would be choosing to fire my archers into, but I can't see the blood specs that would indicate that was the case, but I think this would be valuable to do. They aren't high value units, but the pike line can hold well, especially when backed up with Castamir's Chosen and the Savages. The Savages are good in melee. They really need to be zoned out and killed with archers, and you can see the archers coming in now, and they are shooting those back lines, and that will help them out. You can see that it looks like either Apollo is repositioning to retreat, or they found a problem in their lines. It could be over here, but I don't think they do. I think this is overcommitment, in my opinion. So they've got a good angle to shoot down into Froggy's forces here, and this line would hold relatively well. You can see a lot of shots coming in. I don't think they need any more. The Blackguard they're throwing, I think maybe... I mean, I guess there's some units here which are valuable for jabs because they can't miss, but I probably wouldn't worry too much. I think this is an overcommitment. Unless what they want to do is try and flank around the defenders, I wouldn't commit this many units here. I think they're better used elsewhere. It's just an extreme number of units. Maybe they're just worried because the tierage of them isn't very high, but they're not fighting particularly high tier. And actually what they're using is they're using a lot of their archers, although admittedly they're only Corsair archers, but they're using a lot of their javelins, what was into basically some heavy goblin infantry, orc fodder, and goblin infantry, and they've got those to spare. You can see some more units being pushed to the front now. I now also think that Tundra, Fox, and Froggy are overcommitting to this fight. So they're going for a push here to this line. They don't need to. They don't need to. This is death. Now, one reason they might be pushing so hard is because the archers are tearing them up because of this line of sight they've got. And they almost just can't miss, as I was saying before. So they're losing tremendous amounts of forces here. So maybe they're just pushing in the hopes to get closer to melee to get some friendly fire. But this is an overcommitment by the defenders, and I don't think the attackers need to worry about this. I think they could have taken it slower there. I don't think that's working in their favour. On the other side, things are continuing to move a little bit back and forth. If anything, I think that the defenders here are pushing the attackers back, but also then giving up ground elsewhere. Again, I think they're pushing a little bit hard here. I think there was more opportunity to have a bit more of a skirmish with these guys because they're so lightly armoured, and killing them out. It looks like they're going for some of the more valuable units back here with their arrows, but I think they've got enough halberds that they could have used halberds on these guys, and they could have just archered these blokes down to try and get through quicker. My opinion is that chokes, you want to try and get through the early ones as quickly as you can. But that's just me. So he's had to commit his Corsair Archers here against the Black Legion. They are going to struggle with that fight, but they are at least going to keep them busy to support their flanks. However, it looks like the Orc Fodder are now going to flank the Archers, and that might cause them to break, or at least the fact is the fodder won't do too badly. You can see Destroyers mopping up more and more of this front line. I think at this point, if I was Destroyer, I would start sending some units to start fighting these melee, get into melee with these archers. He's spending a long time trying to clear up the last pockets of resistance. You can see here that he's committed 4, 5, maybe slightly more units here into this battle line against a couple of forces holding this line, but he's broken through utterly on this side. He needs to get up in these faces. He needs to start killing some of these guys, stopping them from firing, making things difficult, making life difficult for Apollo and for his ally, who's having to send more and more of his forces over now to reinforce this location. And it might be a little bit too late. The defenders are going to spread out. They're not going to be in formation. They're going to be a little bit out of whack. And this is where Destroyer needs to capitalize on what he's done. And the question is, what has he got left to send forward? Not much, really. He's got a couple of his elites left back here. He's got his Chosen, he's got his Bodyguard, and he's got his missile units. So he doesn't have a huge amount that he can start reinforcing with, but he does need to keep this pressure applied, because he needs to keep making the defenders move more and more units over to this location, because as they do so, it frees up the chance that they can break through elsewhere. And it also is pulling, I don't know if you can see that on the minimap, it's pulling forces from that final defense point forward, and that final defense point is really hard. It's a very, very hard location to get into, and it's quite a nice one to defend by. But they're pulling everything into this section here where Destroyer is. Now, Destroyer needs to be slightly careful, admittedly, because if he gets wiped out by himself, then it just means the defenders will just go back to the choke points where they haven't broken through, and they'll be able to hold that without any problem, because it will be all of them combined. They're actually going to fight to the death. It's going to be all of them combined against the remaining 2 attackers. Now, it's interesting, actually, that the Corsair Archers are doing okay, fighting uphill, and that the archers, in fact, were the ones that broke, but it probably was the charge from this infantry that did it just from sheer numbers. As they now get into the back lines of the Orc Archers, the infantry will probably do okay there. In fact, they're probably not going to be too harassed, and if anything, the Orc Archers might have a bit of trouble here. They might struggle, and you can see here that Ark is doing a good play. So Ark, unlike what was happening before, has been able to get into these archer ranks, and he is rear charging into the back of Destroyer. So this is what I wanted Destroyer to do on his side, but actually he's now made it so that he's got the problem himself. And you can see here that what's happening is that these forces have been able to come over and overwhelm Destroyer now, mainly because I think he didn't capitalize quick enough, and partly because I don't think he made the most of rear charging when he had the option to. And now he's being cleaned up, in fact. So you can see here that after having such an aggressive, strong position, it is actually him that is now being finished off here, where he could have had a chance to turn this battle around for the attackers to basically vanquish the enemy early on. And now he's back to trying to fight through his own archers to get to this infantry with his Morgul Chosen. I think he needs to slow down slightly, re-hold his position, and possibly even fall back and make the defenders come out to him. He's going to get isolated and surrounded at this point, though. You can see here that the Corsair backguards, after using their ammunition, are now going to charge in. And they're going to start getting involved with this battle line here. And these guys are going to be fighting back to back soon. As you can see, arrows now starting to come into this blob, trying to work their way down as they bring in halberds, moving forward slowly in halberd formation against these archers, which probably didn't get to use all of their ammunition. And now what you get to see is the defenders are going to start repositioning all these units again back over to the main battle lines. The only advantage is, I guess, that he's making them use up some high-tier archers, and they're keeping them busy still. But yeah, those archers are going to be good in melee as well. So what's he got left? He's got his Bodyguard, which are going to be moving into screening position for his Temple Guard. I wonder what they're going to be shooting at. probably, hopefully, something valuable. Maybe the back lines of these guys. But, yeah. They'll hold a while, these guys. They will hold a while, and they haven't been fully encapsulated yet. What I would suggest is if they do look like they're going to do that, yeah, he's going to have to come in and sideswipe these halberds. Now, he has noticed that Apollo, and he's going to bring his archers forward, but I don't think he's realised fully. He does reposition his halberds to take face on the bodyguard, but they aren't going to be in formation just yet. So the halberds are going to be out of formation, but they won't take them long to get into it. But the bodyguard will have to try and hold there just to support their flank. He may need to commit his temple guard soon, just to fill this gap here, or to try and get around here. But Apollo, after having a bit of a shaky start, has now been able to turn it around with the help of his allies. And he's now looking in a much better position. Still has some good units there. Admittedly, they are ranged, but they are not going to be rubbish in melee. You can see their high armor value. You can see they've got shields. And obviously, you can see they've got swords. They are going to start firing. It looks like they're going to be firing probably at these guys back here. They'll be able to take a little bit of punishment. So at least it will hopefully try and save his blob. Once they've got through their ammunition, though, they need to get in to support this front line. As you can see, Corsair infantry coming in. You can see that they're still just trying to push around these guys fighting back to back. They haven't really been able to spread out, which means the guys in the centre aren't really having much luck being able to fight. They're not really being able to make the most of the fact that they do have an okay number of units. The bodyguard here doing okay against the halberds, so as long as they hold, that should work out all right for Destroyer. Okay, let's move back and see what we've got over here. So, the attackers here are also starting to run out of steam. You can see here that they've been forced back slightly. Archer unit there, still being able to fire, not really having too much going into it, but Casimir's Chosen is working on the next slide down. You can see the Fearmonger is now going to try and make the most of the fact that the attackers have forced their way forward, and he's going to use his bodyguard, I guess, to try and hold that flank open as they can start taking shots now from the archers that have been repositioned from that fight with Destroyer. So if he can push through, he might be able to get to this lines, but it looks like he's going to get cornered here by the fences, so he's going to have to reposition or fall back. He's going to go for a side charge into the halberds, which isn't a bad idea, I think, but he's going to have to bug out, I think, against those fences. Now, he won't do too badly against the fences in the sense that he can keep poking them, and he can keep trying to put them into a bit of a stun lock position. The fences generally work well if they've got something to support them, so they need to take the hits for them. And I think the Fearmongers won't feel too bad about this one, but they are going to get their archers coming in now to help them out, and thus take a little bit of the pressure off, so the Fearmongers will have a distractionary force they need to shoot at. Some arrows still being fired there into those front lines. It looks like he does still have some Corsair pikemen, although they have Bout broken. They should have really been finished off a little bit earlier, in my opinion. Blackback Mountain Berserkers now being committed into this flank. What are they going up against? They're going up against some heavy infantry. I don't think they'll be too worried about that, but he needs to get them a little bit forward to get into that fight a bit more. For whatever reason, it looks like maybe one or two have just touched the corner of this battle here, and it stopped the rest of them. So he needs to just kind of force those guys in to get round the back. He does still have a troll as part of the drummer units, the captain there, so he's still fighting away and messing up the formations as he continues to try and move his Fearmongers around. I think he needs to target a spot and really go for it now, though, as I think this would have been a good opportunity here. They're only really archers, and I think the Fearmongers could have done okay, but he spread them out there. In terms of the rest of the archers, if they're out of ammunition or they're repositioned again, you can see them all marching around. I guess they don't entirely know where they want to send them. Sauron's Rill there, just waiting in the background. On this other side, where they had that heavy push, I would expect to see the defenders victorious. It's still an ongoing fight. A lot of dead on the attackers there. I think they, again, the defenders used a lot of ammunition, and they probably killed a lot for not actually taking that many losses. I think they did quite well, but again, I think they overcommitted. They're going to be pushing back the attackers here, but they're going to be pushing into halberds, backed up with the berserkers, and a similar, I guess, position on the other side. It's going to be spearmen backed up with their own berserkers. But they're a little bit lower tier here. I think what happens is that with this push of the guard, we'll see them probably break through without something stronger holding the line, something with sort of shield wall formation. I think this push might be enough to actually make it. He's going to lose a few getting through there, but I think he'll muscle his way in. So you can see him pushing and trying to reform them, trying to get through with this U-shape, and you can see them there all just trying to shuffle to the front. They are starting to get one through. Are they going to get any more to get through the lines? They're still pushing. They're still getting them sort of shuffled out the way. They are breaking the formation. They are pushing these guys around. I think some of these are even just archers. So this could work out in their favor as they do start breaking through now. It looks like they're very close to getting the swarm in, but have they got anything to reinforce it? This is now empty. They need to get another unit in there to replace it. Otherwise, these guys will pop out the other end and then have nothing backing them up. So he's got some archers there, but that's about it. Followed up with some more archers. So this is really it, I suppose. As a general goes down, there goes a Nazgul. That is probably going to be destroyers. Is that where the warlords are right now? Yeah, it's destroyers. He's getting rear charged there by the Cav. He just had nothing to keep them back. I guess he's probably lost his Temple Inquisitors. No, his Temple Inquisitors are here, on the flank here, fighting, which I thought he might do. The only good news, I guess, for Destroyer is that the units he has do have high morale, so they will hold even without the General. The problem is that this Cavalry has got free reign, ultimately, to basically keep charging into the back of these guys. He's got nothing to really stop them except for the spears already committed. So this will be a slow cycle charge demise. And actually, they've made these guys pull out. So I think because they are losing a lot to the Temple Inquisitors when they don't need to, this is the right decision. The Temple Inquisitors are going to have to keep fighting through the rest of these missile units, really, whilst being cycle charged. So rather than leave something which you care about there to die, you might as well leave something you don't care about there very much so that they can keep being charged by the Cav. And I think we'll see the Morgul's Chosen being charged quite a lot as well. Looks like the Temple Guard are going to try and chase them down. I guess they could do that. I think maybe if they got into the back of these guys, it might help free up the Spearmen. And if they could do that, they might be able to do something about this Cav. So he's got a smaller unit there of just 6 Morgul's Chosen who've got in to disrupt that charge. And it looks like they did disrupt it quite well, taking a few losses, but I guess it did save the main bulk, but didn't get any kills. That Warlord force is going to be a little bit of a pain for the Destroyer there. I don't think he's going to have much luck there. They've finally broken through then on this side. They don't really have much in the way of infantry left, though. That's the big problem. They've got the Sauron's Will, but they have at least now broken through that line after having sort of all those units being... Look at the dead. Look at all the dead units in this one spot. It's ridiculous. The question really, I think, for here is that the attackers are going to almost have no ammunition. Absolutely, sort of, we're talking about minuscule amounts. So the question is, do they have the infantry left of a significant number to take on what's left over? Or do they just have archers without ammunition? And if it is archers without ammunition, this is going to be the end for the attackers. They just won't be able to do it. But you can see here that they do have some spearman units that are still in spear formation, just kind of charging up. Now what they want to do and see if they can isolate any forces that are being left behind. Oh, it'd be interesting to see if he has any javelins left, actually. Isolate any forces left behind and get some cheap kills before they can fall back entirely. So on this side, you've got some Blackback Mountain Berserkers. They're going to win that fight there. Can they try and save Destroyer? Have they got enough time to get there? And if they do get there, can they get the Warlords before they slip away and escape? Now, they might be able to save the Temple Inquisitors. Now that they're on this side, away from the Warlords, they're not going to get... well, I mean, they're not going to get charged without going through their own ally and their own units. So they should be fine there. The bodyguard is now pretty much cleared up. So these guys can actually go into this gap. But I think he just wants to keep using them, the final spearmen. But there's only 14 of them left. He needs to kind of bring that cavalry through to go for these... Temple Guard. I think he's going to send instead the Corsair Blackguard in to take on the Temple Guard. Now, how close is his ally? Okay, so Tundra Fox is sending over some Spheremongers, which is good because that will help against the cavalry. The only downside is I think what's going to happen is that as soon as Ark sees that he's not going to be able to get out of here, these guys are going to rush off into the back along the red zone somewhere. Somewhere where they're not going to basically be able to be caught. The attackers don't have anything that they can use to catch the cavalry, and because of that they're not going to really be able to stop them from slipping away. But he's going to try and come in here and he's going to try and save the Temple Inquisitors that are fighting the Blackguards. These guys are going to slip out. Now the question is which way are they going to slip? They're going to slip back to the main defense. I'm not sure I would have done that. I think that I would have slipped back further into the rear. Looks like there's a general going for the defenders there. I would have slipped back maybe further to the rear here, because actually, if he gets penned up into the final defense, then they're not really going to be able to do some rear charging, especially when the attackers don't have anything really to stop them. So over here we've got some SAURON's Will. They've been able to catch out a couple of units of spearmen. The Warlords there just touching the Black Mountain Berserkers. Actually, I think they were probably trying to charge them. I think it was actually meant to be what the intention was. Trying to get rid of some of those units. Or he's just trying to maneuver around and realise, nope, no, I think this is the case. So he's going to do some cycle charging there into Black Mountain Berserkers, try and take out some units on the field. There's some Goblin Spears come in now there with their bonus against cavalry. So Ark needs to try and get this cavalry away. The good news is that from his point of view, from Ark's point of view, from Matt Groen's point of view, he only has to worry about the one unit. And he does still have some crossbows back down here. But I don't think they're going to have any line of sight, which is probably why they're not actually doing much attacking. I don't really know what they would be able to see from the way they're facing. Maybe they're bugged out. Or they're trying to shoot the Fearmongerers. Again, they're a little finicky in terms of the angles they shoot at. There's the shots. Yeah, they're going into the side of the Fearmongerers there. And they're going to bug out, I think, because they've seen the Berserkers coming forward. So the Warlords are now going to try and go into the town. They're going to go up against some Orc Javelins. So if they do have any Javelins, this might be worth trying to take them out. But they're going to just slip away rather than going for that charge there. So it does look like they're going to get hemmed and they're going to get forced back to the final defense, where they've got a couple of archers there that do still have some ammunition and some Corsair crossbows there. Sorry, yeah, in hiding. Just kind of waiting, I guess. So Froggy is going to be moving by his forces, but I think these Warlords are going to escape back into the defense. But again, I'm not sure I would put them there. I think they would have more luck staying out in the wilderness, just kind of harassing. So they are going to go for these archers, try and get some shots, charge head first in. Not a bad choice, probably not the best choice, mainly just because losing some archers probably doesn't mean anything. The good choice is that he can get quite a few kills, although having said that, the charge wasn't fantastic. But he's going to just try and ping-pong some archers. But they do share ammunition. They're not going to be much use in the final fight anyway. But you could argue at least kills are kills. So it does mean there's one less he needs to worry about later on. But yeah, Froggy does need to do something about these guys. Either force them back into the town so they can't harass his rear line, or just try and send something that can take them out. In terms of the mop-up out here then, it looks like it's almost all over. Let's see if they saved anything from Destroyer. I think they must have done something. There's still a couple of units fighting, ironically. Yeah, there's Destroyer's Temple Guard there fighting the missile unit and the halberds. The backup the halberds probably what's going to swing this possibly in their favour. I think the Temple Guard will struggle in this one unless they can somehow break them. Question is, do they want to leave that unit back there? I mean, it is depleted force, so maybe it's not too much of a problem if they do leave it there. But it would be nice to try and save the Temple Guard, seeing as they fought so hard for so long. But they're just down to 3 guys now, so there's not really much they can do. Down to 2. We'll see if we can watch their final stand here. I expect they'll probably, the attackers will send something over just to clear out these guys before they do the final bout. There he is. And some of the halberds just ignoring him. They just don't care anymore. Is he going to get a final kill? He's trying. I don't think he's going to do it. There he goes. So down they go. So you can see that there's significant losses there on both sides, but it could have been what broke and won the game if it had been able to be a bit more capitalized on. But the defenders were able to recover well and sort them out. So the SAURON's Will are basically going to try and mop up the last of these guys, and they probably will do that relatively successfully. And there's actually still a couple of Tundra's bodyguard here as well that are going to do a rear charge into the back of these guys. What happened to the last of the halberds? Where did they go? Did they get away? Are they mixed in with those archers? Probably mixed in with the archers, maybe. No, they broke anyway from the sheer numbers. Yeah, I don't know where they went. Oh, there they are. There they are. They're here is their group of 8 in their formation. They won't last very long either. But let's watch the forces of Mordor take revenge, I suppose, as these guys charge in head first into the halberds. Oh, and they did lower them in time. But it's not going to be enough. Down to 4. I mean, they're exhausted and wavering, and They don't look like they're going to break, though, so good on them. They fought to the last. Okay, so now we're looking at the final bout. So, you can see there's the cavalry there. I think the cavalry do want to try and slip out again. I think they did want to try and get into the rear sort of locations to try and fight it out. There's a few depleted crossbow forces here just trying to take some pot shots. What are they trying to shoot at? What have they seen? Goblin spears. So yeah, they're trying to just work down the last of the infantry. They are quite quick though, so they should be able to outpace the goblins. And I think it's the right decision now for the defenders. If they can get rid of as much of the infantry as possible, I don't think they have to worry about the skirmish phase. They should be okay. The cavalry wasn't able to seemingly get out to be able to harass the rear lines. That might be what end... I mean, if the defenders do lose, I don't know. All I know is this is very close. That could be it. I mean, if you could keep these guys messing around the back lines, then you could really do something here. Now, it is a hard attack here. Now, what I would probably consider doing is putting a show force here to keep units on this side. Although, having said that, I don't think the defenders have too many units they can send over here. So, this could be an opportunity here. They've got this screening of the warlords, but they don't have anything substantial holding it. They're going to have some archers and they've got some crossbows. This could be an opening here. This could be an opportunity. On the other sides, though, things will be a little bit more difficult. Mainly because, although it's a flat terrain, which makes it a little easier for them, you've got crossfire here, which will kind of come in from the javies and any crossbows they've got, which are going to have easy shots. It's a very small choke point as well, so you can get good deep layers, making it difficult to push. And it's not hard to basically pull reserves from one side to the other and back again, if they need to, as the fight continues, depending on which side is winning and which one isn't for a defender. So he still has a reserve of some Castamirs. Has he got anything else really knocking around? Not really, just the Castamirs waiting there, I think, for the most part. If this is it for the infantry, because they put so much into that main town... They've got some crossbows here still hidden, so I don't know if... I mean, these guys obviously aren't. These guys are. Are they taking out their weapons? No, they're still using their crossbows, so these must still have some ammunition. Maybe they're waiting for something better than the javelins, although they're going to get spotted. Yeah, there they go. So the javelins there... going to get shot down. They're going to rout against those crossbows. So the real advantage the defenders have is they still got crossbows and they still seemingly have ammunition. The downside for the defenders is that besides what seems to be this one halberd unit, this blackguard unit, and the Castamirs, they don't have really infantry. At least not very much. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. The main thing that will be interesting as well, I say interesting a lot, is do they have any ammunition left on the defenders? And sorry, on the attackers. And I don't think they really do. So actually... they're going to have to push forward. They're going to have to keep trying to push into this. Keep trying to make these guys withdraw. Keep forcing them back. Keep putting them into a tighter space. Keep making them use up ammunition. And hopefully just wear them down. And don't, whatever they do, do not attack into the halberds. Go down this side. Go up that's the other side where the warlords are. Anything. Just don't meet them head on here unless they had javelins still with ammunition. And I don't think they do. They got some archers who've set up here. If they got their bows out still. Oh, they do technically have their bows out, so there's an opportunity there. They do still have some temple guard that will become invaluable later. They've got some spears, some more archers knocking around. They've still got their Sauron's Will looking healthy. Again, I wouldn't send them into that hole. If anything, because they've got the infantry, I'd send maybe the bodyguard. I know that they've got crossbows, but even so, bear with me here. I'd send the bodyguard down this side here, right? Where they've got the crossbows and not much else. Okay, it's going to be a difficult jog, but if they support it with something like the last remnants of his berserkers or something like that that's quick, he might be okay. Start pushing through this side. Now, he's going to have to make a decision then. Does he pull his spearmen over or send his Castamirs? Either way, it's an advantage. If he pulls over these guys, then he sends his everything else through this gap here. If he pulls through his Castamirs, then that's fine, because again, it means that then what they can do is continue to focus on this slope. As you can see here, the Warlord's now going for downhill charges. They're going for downhill charges into spears, so Here we go. They might do okay. Is the spears going to drop? They don't drop their spears in time. So that's going to be devastating for the spears. It looks like they were trying to get in formation. I don't know what happened there. I don't know what Tundra was doing. It probably was... he was trying to get in formation. He was in loose formation because of the crossbow shots that were coming in, I believe. And then he's tried to get into spear formation for the charge, but they just weren't able to do it, so they didn't get their spears down in time. And so they took heavy losses there on that charge. So not great. And it looks like he almost had an opportunity to do it again. So Tundra's trying to charge down and get into the back of these cav. I don't think he's going to do it. He is helping him get up the hillside, though. He can't risk necessarily firing into the spears when his cav's so close, because he might shoot his own cavalry. But they are getting downhill charges, and they aren't being able to drop their spears to support that attack. So you can see that the Warlord's not losing too much, but they are held in a little bit longer there. But nope, there you go. The Warlord Archers have been committed. This is the point where Tundra needs to push forward, and he is pushing forward with another group of halberds. While those guys are now busy, because these guys are now being committed, they can't charge into that easily now. At least not in the way they'd want to. These guys, they can get mopped up with arrows if they have to. But this is important. The fact that these archers are now busy with the spears means that they can't be charged constantly by the cavalry. So he can move up these halberds, and he can consider either screening that fight or getting into the back of them. The Warlords now, at least for a short period of time, aren't going to be doing much. The Castamere is now going to be moved over. I thought the Hardbringers were going to get shifted to that line, and they've got to be. Now what happens is that the attackers have to consider going for this line, try and force the defenders to reposition, because 2 units of Castameres is now going over to this ridge. So what he needs to do is start making an attack here, because he can't re-support it this quickly, especially with the crossbows moving back. I think they're also going to try and make their way over to the ridge, or they're going to try and replace... no, he's going to change his mind. So what have we got here? So he's pushing up now with the Mountain Berserker, so he's making a good push. Now, what I think Tundra should do is lock off these areas, basically. Start locking them off. If he can block one, then he can start pushing another. Especially now that you can see the Warlords are going to come round again. They're going to try and go for those spears again, probably, if they get a chance. But if you can block one side off with a small unit, then he can push the other. And while he continues to push this, these guys have to keep trying to hold these other chokes. He can't afford to move these halberds. But if I was Froggy, I'd keep edging myself forward, keep inching up closer and closer to support my ally. I'd even start putting my units here and here, just because that way, if an opportunity arises, I can take it. Right now, though, he's being shot by some crossbows, but he is going to do return fire with the archers, and the archers should do okay in that scenario. The Saurons will, if they do get into melee, should win that. But he doesn't want to start pushing up. He doesn't want to leave Tundra by himself. If Tundra is isolated by himself, if those units of Castameres and those crossbows can kill Tundra, then that's it. This is all over. They need to keep trying to push together at this point, because the best thing they can do is stop themselves from being isolated. And it looks like he's going to get the Blackback Berserkers to keep chasing down these archers and crossbows. Oh! He almost caught the back of those crossbows, but he's changed his mind. That's a shame. He almost had that. I think if he kept going a little longer, he could have taken out a couple more. And they're only running back towards some Castameres facing the wrong direction. I think he had a chance there to kill some crossbows, and that might be costly later. But he's going to slowly bring his halberds up. He's still got a good number of berserkers. He needs to keep them protected from the crossbows, and he's got some fearmongers, so that's doing good for him. He's still got his bodyguard as well. So he has locked off this side with the fearmongers. Good. He could even push them up slightly further, but either way, he's locked that side off, which allows him to push this one. And if they overcommit their defenders here, then he just pushes the other side. Now, what it does do is the defenders now have to split their forces. So he's making the defenders keep dividing units, keep making them defend more locations. But what he really needs now is he needs Froggy to start moving forward on his side to try and support him and keep that split happening. You can see there that actually the crossbow's almost done and dusted now. Looks like the Saurons will either got pulled back or died. Not sure what happened to them. I probably wouldn't keep firing into these guys anymore, mainly because they don't have any ammunition anymore. You can see there that they pulled out some of their sort of... I don't know what you would call them. I guess they're like boat hooks or something like that, and they've gone into hiding. So maybe boat hooks or something. But either way, he needs to save his ammunition now. He needs to stop firing into there. That's It's not worth it. There's only 5 dudes. And he needs to start bringing up his units. He needs to start threatening this side. And you can see here, he's had to move his Royal Guard over. So his Royal Guard's over here. The Warlords are over here. So he's now split again. So he's had to keep doing this. So we're now getting close to the final bout. So we've got his archers here. Now they're taking some flanking shots now from the archers, which I think is probably a good idea. Especially since he can't see too much. The alternative is that you could shoot the Cavalry Chosen, which is a slightly larger unit at 63 rather than 33. Some of these arrows are hitting the dirt a little bit, and that means they're not getting as much value as they may otherwise do so. Whereas he went for the Cavalry Chosen, he's got a chance of hitting a little bit of a bigger blob. As you can see, some more of his crossbows getting threatened there as they pull back exhausted. He's got some hidden ones here. Do they still have ammunition? Seemingly so. And he's got some Harbingers here as well. Be interesting to see what he sends up against them. In fairness, the Fearmonger has backed up with some Berserkers. Could probably take that 63. Depending on if he knows that the crossbows are there or not. So he has his first engagement against the softened up archers. If they weren't so eager, he could have probably pushed through that and maybe broken them. Unfortunately, his halberds are going to break instead because they're just exhausted. And that's a unit of 74 there. That's really unfortunate. And because of that, you can see that what's going to happen is that Apollo is going to reposition his forces onto the other side because he's been able to take those guys out. They did now fight to the death. So they're going to just hold that position for him, which might be, at least there's a bit of a show of force. But that's really unfortunate. That's really unlucky that he's had those guys break. I guess just because they're so tired and because there's so many units there. The right action happened here from Froggy. He's just going to shoot down these halberds. He doesn't need to keep rushing into that. He doesn't have to push any faster than he wants to. As now he's fighting here against the last of the Umber Warlords. It looks like his bodyguard's being committed into that. I'm interested to see what happens here. Some shots going in, some rear shots there where they haven't got the shield value. That's definitely worth doing. They're down now to 7. He might just bug those guys out now then, whilst he can see that the missile shots are still coming in. And a Temple Guard moving forward. How big is that? So it's unit 53, so he's still got a healthy Temple Guard unit. I think the Temple Guard unit with 115 Sauron's will do quite well against the Royal Guard by themselves if they're not backed up with anything. So I think there's an opportunity there. Wouldn't bother firing into them though, just because of the shield value they've got. His better bet is still probably shooting into the halberds. So over on this side, Tundra's broken through. Now he's got into the back lines with the Royal Archers. He's going to use his Berserkers backed up with his Black Mountain Berserkers to take that out. And that'll probably work quite well. The Black Guards are moving over. They're going to try and throw some javies, so I think what he wants to do is try and yeah, he is going to do it. Realign these Berserkers to charge into that. He wants to lose as little of the Black Mounted Berserkers as possible, and unfortunately he hasn't been able to protect them as well as he'd like. He drops them down to 20. He needs to get these guys in. I know they're exhausted, but he needs to capture these guys, and he does catch them. Whether they still have ammunition left or not, I don't know. The other good news is these crossbows now are not going to have as great of a line of sight as they want. I expect they're probably going to still try and shoot into the Black Berserkers, but I don't think they're going to be able to see them, especially not through their own Blackguard. So we'll see what happens in there. But the Fearmongers might be able to just ignore these guys and push through. So there goes one of the generals there. That's one of the final generals for the defenders. There's the Warlords. Let's see if they can make any difference there. Last group now, the group of 7. Charging there into the Black Mounted Berserkers again, their favourite target alongside the Bodyguard, but I don't think the Bodyguard has its general anymore. So, but he didn't lose anything, which is important there. This is where Tundra could do something sneaky. If he blocks off this side, which he is doing with the Fearmongers, he can recharge the Halberds, and that could be really important. If this Spear Guard can engage the Halberds, and Tundra Fox can attack them from behind, then he can do something here. Although it depends how well he does against these Castamirs backed up with the Warlords. Over here, Froggy's having to commit some archers into that fight. Yeah, there you go. I was going to say, where's those Temple Guard? He needs them in that front line. He needs the Temple Guard to force through. Force through here, maybe. I'd even be tempted to maybe try and use some of this archer unit to just kind of push through the lines to try and make it easier for myself. But if he can get those Temple Guard to the front lines, they should do okay, but I think he needs to try and push through there. Sauron's Rill definitely need to get through here. They need to force through this gap. They need to just try and push as hard as they can just to get him around behind. He's got the extra units here. He doesn't need to What he needs to do is get through the choke, and I think he needs to just try and push up the flank. But we'll see how that goes for him. It's coming down to the wire here, so looking at the numbers, it's 93 to 99, so it's still extremely close. Probably favouring the attackers slightly at this point. You can see now the halberds moving forward. Hopefully they aren't going to break. He does look like he's running out of black-back berserkers as they go into that battle with the Castamir's Chosen. Be interested to see how they match up. I think my money's probably on the Castamir's Chosen just because they're so fresh against the exhausted unit. On the other side, his formation isn't helping him here with his fearmongerers. He's not getting as good of an angle, I think, of attack as he wanted to. He could probably spread out and kill more of these guys, but they will win that fight. And the crossbows will have to reposition. I don't know where they'll go. Maybe they'll try and get here where these warlords are to shoot into the flank. That's probably what I think they'll try and do. You can see he's reloading there, so he's definitely trying to do that with them. And I think he's also waiting for them to push forward so maybe he can get a side swipe into them. On this side, however, you've got the Castamirs fighting against some fearmongerers and some goblin spears. The spears probably aren't going to win. The fearmonger is actually struggling here against the Castamirs Chosen. I thought they'd do a little bit better. We'll see how it goes as time continues and see how the losses push forward. I think he maybe needs to consider about when those guys are no longer exhausted, sending them in on a rear flank just to try and demoralize, but I think they're probably too high of a tier. He's got a single berserker or two berserkers going through, and maybe you're going to try and support that fight. So he does win here. The question is, what does he do? I think he probably wants to consider saving this unit as best he can, or sending them in against those crossbows. We'll see. Over here, the halberds then fighting up against these spear units. Did they get turned around? It does look like they're facing the wrong way, so maybe they did get pushed to face the wrong way, but this is going to start losing units here because they're not supporting them in the formation. So that's a locking out for Froggy there. Meanwhile, over the other side, halberds versus the Castamirs could go either way. It's so close, there's so little in it. Froggy's missile unit there did break through somewhere. I think they broke through here, possibly, and that's what turned the spearmen. But they're going to go for... What are they going to go for? Can't afford to run them around too much. I think he's trying to take out the cavalry. Okay, so he is now getting through this line here with his Royal Guard. It looks like he's going to push those archers through. That's probably where they came from. So these archers, yeah, I mean, it might be worth just trying to get the back of the halberds, but he's not going to keep... He's going to keep this cav busy, which is not bad, actually. He's basically turning the cav each time, so the cav doesn't want to do anything which isn't a rear charge, so he's forcing them to run around. Meanwhile, the Saurons will... oh, there's a good charge there into the flank of the archers. And pretty devastating, really. Good number of kills there without any losses. So... but it is keeping them busy. It's allowing him to keep trying to work on this spear guard as he pushes through another unit of his archers there. Cavalry still doing their thing, still working out really well. I think that Froggy's making the right decision here. He needs to try and break through to get his spears through. And the only way he's going to get his spears through is if he can get rid of these halberds. So I think he's just going to have to sacrifice his archers to try and kill the halberds with the rear charge. And they're just going to have to take the brunt of those charges from that 7 cav and hope it's not too devastating. So the Castamirs Chosen here are going to bug out against the halberds, but they did do pretty well. It was a pretty close battle between them, actually. So there's something there, but it does free up those units. It does have some goblin archers still. They are firing into the 7 crossbows. I don't think I would bother, but I think I would probably have them fire at the cav. Castamirs Chosen here, still pretty confident of their victory. So this is where he sent over another unit of his fearmongers, but they're not in a good formation. And actually, these goblins need to probably come in and do a rear attack here. It's not a good formation. They're not spread out, so they're not actually using their numbers to their favour. And this is working out favourably for the Harbingers. Because what's happening is that these guys can't get that many spears into them. And if anything, what's happening is that the Castamirs... the Harbingers are actually getting more swords in against a larger number fearmonger unit. But there you go. These guys need to get in that attack, basically. And these guys need to reposition themselves. This box is not helping them at all. And he's gonna keep charging through. I don't know where he's heading, to be honest. I think he needs to win this battle. There you go. Is he gonna get in there? Oh, he's worried about the Harbingers coming in for a rear attack on the fearmongers, which is probably fair. I think that the attackers are running out a little bit of steam here. I think they're gonna start having trouble. I think they've been probably the war of attrition is just too much, and I think that my money at this point is probably going to be on the defenders, and actually the balance bar is starting to agree with me here. It's 97 to 97, but just the units they have left is better. They just have better units remaining, and they still have some crossbow ammo there. You can see still firing. So it's going to be close. I think there are some things that the attackers could have done differently. I think there's some things the defenders could have done differently. But it does look like this is going to be a defender's victory. I'm just not sure where they'll be able to pull this back. These crossbows... So these archers, what do they shoot? The archers are trying to shoot the crossbows, which is probably a good target. The cav now is probably going to go and rear charge these archers here and these fearmongerers. And these guys aren't going to be breaking anytime soon, and neither are these ones. So these guys will get mopped up here relatively quickly, and he's doing the right thing here. Sorry about that. Doing the right thing. He's going to ignore the archers and go for a rear check on the fearmongerers, and that's probably what I would do. These cav is probably going to actually hit these archers, which are going for the crossbows, and they've actually turned around to shoot a singular crossbow of 3 back there who are broken. So that's not good. Anyway, they don't get the full charge because of the way they had to turn, but these guys needed to probably keep focusing on them. The halberds now have scared off the crossbows, which just move back because of their pace, and they'll probably turn around and start firing at the halberds again. The cavalry there is going to just try and mop up these guys, and they do break them. They get a final shot off for a volley, but then they're broke, so they're not going to do anything. They're going to rout off. Over this side, the spears versus the halberds. The halberds are going to win against these spears from the looks of it, which is unfortunate. And I think this is going to be all she wrote. The heavy goblin halberds going to try and get them. They're going to get them. They got some of them. Are they going to be able to weasel away? 1 goes down. 2 goes down. No, they get general, though, unfortunately. He's down to 3. This fight against the Royal Guard is going to go in their favour, just because the Sauron's Will and the Temple Guard are strong units. That is a general's unit there. So, if he can keep using his halberd to screen the cavalry, then maybe. He's got to be careful of these crossbows, though, that still have ammunition fighting away. And there's 2 units of customers chosen over here. Which, well, we were over here. I don't know where they've gone now. There they are, making their way over. And if anything, the attackers now need to consider how they can position themselves as defenders. So the halberds are going to try and screen out those last 3 cav. The Temple Inquisitor, the Temple Guard are going to take out the last of these crossbows without too much trouble. They are going to try and run away. They are quite quick, remember, so they will probably have a good chance if they don't break from the fear effect. Harbingers versus Temple Guard. Temple Guard should win that one if they aren't going to get shot down too hard by what's left there. Over here, the Sauron's Will are probably going to lose this fight, I think, now, I would have thought. No, victory still seems certain. No, there you go, there's the defeat. So taking that Temple Guard away has meant that this is going to turn into a defeat here against the Royal Guard. There's an argument that they should have maybe finished up here, I think. But I can see why they wanted to get rid of the crossbows. I think at this point, though, they need to think about where they want to make their stand, really. Probably they want to try and just group up, find a spot where they're not going to get charged too hard by the last remaining cavalry, and just try and prepare themselves to fight the Castamir's Harbingers there. And I guess they still want to try and get rid of these crossbows. Who do they have ammunition? They might do. Yeah, they do still have ammunition, so they're going to start reloading. Are they going to get a shot off before they get charged? They are going to get a shot off. They do get a shot off. Point blank range, taking out a couple of the Temple Guard there. So, regardless of the situation, looks like that might have been their final volley, or maybe they have 1 more left in them, but I think they don't have much left. They're going to drop down here. They did take out maybe 2 or 3 there with their final shot, which could be pretty valuable. These halberds then need to consider what they want to do. The last of the cavalry still charging there into the Sauron's Will, which really just down to 3 with a couple bodyguard. They aren't going to survive very long. I think that the defenders definitely aren't going to have too much trouble here. There goes another Nazgul there from the Sauron's Will. And it's now going to be halberds backed up with Temple Guard, taking on the superior lumber. What they need to do is stop themselves being rear charged, and by that they might need to consider bracing themselves against a cliff, as weird as it sounds. Over here, actually the spearmen have turned it around against the halberds. It looks like they might actually win it, so I think what he wants to do is he wants to make it so that there's nowhere that he can be charged easily. Rest up his units, maybe get himself over here, make the cav go all the way around. But to be honest, I think he needs to find a spot he can line himself up with and make it so he can take them face on rather than make them come to him, basically, is what I'm trying to say. And as it stands, though, that cavalry is going to just sweep around right now here. The whole reason he's lined himself up there is because if they come to face him, then he can come around behind and he can either charge these guys or charge these guys. They can't fall into that trap. They are now on the back foot as the attackers. They need to make these guys do the work to come to them. There is no timer on this. So he's going to send the Temple Guard in to try and finish off these. I think they're broken, actually. I wouldn't even bother. He needs to get these halberds into formation. Tundra Fox has got to get those guys moving. They're going to get charged. He needs to get them back here. They're going to get hit. They're caught out. He does make it so that the cavalry can't do their charge, but he needs to form up. He needs to gather up. He's too spread out. Him and Froggy need to talk about what they're doing, and they need to consider what their positioning is going to be. He's going to send his Temple Guard in against one of Castamir's chosen with the last of Royal Guard. Has he got this Spear Guard there? So he's going to send his Spearmen in. Now, this is the problem. He's going to get rear charged. He's going to get rear charged. Now, admittedly, there's only 3, but when you've got so few units, they're going to break. He needed to think about that a little bit better, in my opinion. He needs to work a little bit together. So he does turn around to face them. Can he get any of these guys? Can he get the general? He does get the general. Wow, okay. So this could be a big change here. So he gets the general. So he might be trying to bait. Ah, he did break, though. I thought that would happen. So, unfortunately, this unit of 39 halberds he needed to live are now broken and they're now fighting to the death, which makes them almost useless as they rout now off the field. The only advantage is they're going to rout past the cav, so it'll be interesting to see if the cav are slowed down by them, but that's devastating. Really unfortunate. He needed those guys to stay alive. There goes the charge into them, into the routing units. They can just walk their way through. Shouldn't be a massive problem. They do stop to start fighting to the death. It does keep these guys busy, though, so there's something there. And you never know. They do actually get one. There you go. They will start routing again, though, shortly, and they'll leave the field. So it's just the one cav left. Now he's getting some charges in there. Makes the spearmen fight to the death. So this is the beginnings of what I thought would happen. This is why he needed to not allow them to do this. He needed to make it so that he wasn't fighting a two-front battle, that they were having to fight against him, coming towards his halberds. But whether that would have worked, I don't know. Probably not. They had a lot of elites left. They were still pretty fresh. But it is unfortunate. It'll be interesting to see what happened. That 31 units have still survived. And actually the cavalry is going to try and see them off. I guess trying to get some extra kills, because apparently more kills means you did better. I don't hold up to that view, because if you killed only fodder, then you know it means nothing. Whereas if you killed, say, a lot of elites, then that means far more. I don't get with the idea that killing more means you are, in some respect, the better. It doesn't work that way. But anyway, he sees them off the field. Now they're gone. Charges the last of the spearmen. He's just down to 1. He's dead now as well. They were fighting to the death. They didn't have much left in them. And there goes the last of the temple. So it is going to be a defender's win. It is it was a 99 to 100 there. It just changed over because of the replenishment view. Thank you, everyone, to those who played in this. It was pretty damn close. I think it could have gone either way. I think there are things that people could have done differently. But we'll just have a quick look at the statistics. Obviously, we don't have the name of the players, unfortunately, so I can't tell you who played who. So, anyone that's pretty call out. So, crossbow, of course, there's the crossbows, 424, so they did very well for themselves there. Just shows what you can do. Again, people have trouble with crossbows because they don't like how they can't get good angles on them, but if they get the angle, then they can do really good stuff. Corsair pikemen should never have got anywhere near 206, but then again, I think because they didn't skirmish face them enough. 302 there, so the archer's doing well, but that's not too surprising from the defenders. Again, Archer's doing well. Some of them getting close to sort of 500 and 450. Again, Pikemen 420, Pikemen 378. Probably too much, in my opinion, that they shouldn't have been getting that kind of levels of kills, but hopefully it was against weaker targets. And down here you can see the Warlord 686, kind of what you would expect to see because they were able to stay alive so long. The hard part here for the defenders really is that they did keep the fences relatively low, considering. The hard part is the attackers don't really have anything to combat. The actually the best thing probably is the temples, the temple guards archers, and maybe the Ulukai, but there you go. That was the battle. I want to thank everyone involved. I want to thank everyone for the replay. There's a Spawn of Sauron. If you are interested, they do have a Discord. I don't know if there was any particular lore behind this one. I didn't have it carried through to me, so I can't remember exactly. I think it was really just Umbar trying to hold out against being put under the heel and the boot of Mordor again, and today they have been able to do so, but you could argue with so few people left alive, maybe the cost was too much. But there we go. I've been me, you've been you, and this has been Third Aged Reforged.